I've read some of your letters.
There's been a couple.
Good. I'm
Yeah. Are we? I just noticed. Sorry about that.
No, that's
All right, shall
I didn't know I was supposed to press it. I see the question. I didn't get the rule. Please. Yeah.
Do you want to run through the original approval? I think specifically his question was, did we give them any special conditions? And we did. And we wanted them to be closer to the street. Do you want to discuss that? Okay.
Of course you can. Which color? What color do you want?
They're not, so.
Of course you
Okay. Max, you ready? Is everybody ready?
Ready?
All right.
I'm ready.
Yeah, we have a new member. Yes, okay, great. Let's get rolling here. Everybody's all set. We're at 5:31. When you guys are done with your.
Yeah, when you guys are done.
You need the gavel? You may prefer people to dress up a little better for these things, but handle things as you'd like. I see we have Bill Mulder attending by Zoom. Is that right? Can you hear us, Bill?
Yes, I sure can. Sorry, I don't have much of a voice, but I'm here.
Okay, good. And we have a new member today. Go ahead and introduce.
I'm Rick Tarczynski. I'm a resident since 2013. And I hope to help influence the direction that Harbor Springs is headed.
Great to see you. Great to see you. He's all sworn in and ready to go.
Yeah.
Did Larry or did?
You don't need to be sworn.
All right.
It's just kind of fun to do it.
Okay, I was gonna say,
We good. Welcome. We'll get it taken care of.
All right.
So would you like a roll call?
Sure. As long as we got everybody here, let's go ahead.
All right. Let's start with the new guy, Rick Tarczynski. Vanessa Warren.
Here.
Emily DeVay.
Here.
Jack Deegan.
Here.
George Pete is absent. Bill Mulder is here by Zoom.
In Harbor Springs, if that still matters.
Mark Uday. Here. Andy Bowman is absent. Al Dyga. Here. We have a quorum.
Great. All right. First order of business is approval of the minutes of October 21st, 2021. So we had a chance to review those and find any errors or inaccuracies.
Yeah, I was present at the meeting and I voted. I don't think Beth was here, right? But she's listed?
Well,
Or was she?
it does look funny there. It has approval of minutes of Thursday, August 9th. What page are you looking at?
He's looking at all the pages. So at the very beginning where we have the roll call, we still have Beth Holly's name on there and we have neglected to include Vanessa. And I see that that's carried through on the motions for approval. So we can absolutely strike that and replace Rahali with Warren.
Thank you.
Thank you for bringing that to my attention. I apologize.
Then Jeff, towards the top of page 2, I think Dan Gorman, does not spell his name that way. We've got it as Goreman, and I think there's no E in it.
You're right.
All right. Thank you for that correction.
Any others? Any other issues? Okay, motion to approve the minutes of October 21st, 2021. Anybody want?
I'll make the motion to approve as corrected.
Okay, anybody second?
I'll second it.
Okay, Vanessa? All approved, all in favor?
Aye.
Our third item is, do we have any public comment correspondence? Is anybody here just to have public comment? Anyone? So no. Anybody online that would want to make a comment or have any suggestions? That would be no. Do you see anybody there, Jeff?
Nobody on YouTube.
Okay. That's it. Now we'll move on quickly to item 4, new and old business. As A, we have public hearing, special land use cluster harbor cottages condos. And who is here that would like to, is going to address these issues?
Let's, if you don't mind, sorry to interrupt, we'll start with a motion to open the public hearing.
That sounds good.
If somebody would like to make that
Does
motion.
anybody want to make a motion to open the public hearing as to item number 4?
I'll make
Section
that
A.
motion. I'll make that motion to open the public hearing for special land use for harbor cottages condos.
Second. And so be it, we will begin the public commentary as to that. And ma'am, what is your name?
Barbara Wallace,
Okay.
do you want me to stand?
You, however you are comfortable, it's fine.
Then I'll sit.
That's fine.
I am president of Harbor Cottages, and it's, I think you will probably all know where it is. It's 9 lots, developed 15 to 20 years ago, and we now have quite a bit of interest in building. We have just started our construction, and the houses on 3rd Street are sort of unaffected by the bylaw changes that we would like to make, because we have a different building situation. The houses on 2nd Street will benefit from this change in our bylaws. And what we're asking basically is to put the garages under the house. Can I explain this correctly? As opposed to an attached garage and a detached garage. The reason we are asking for it is because I think the back side of the house would be pretty unsightly, because it would be basically 3 stories. And by tucking the garage under, it gives a little bit more green space around the house, kind of cleans up the back of the house, so that you don't have a huge walkout basement sort of to nothing, into basically you would have to walk into a detached garage. So Audrey helped us write this, so I'm going to kind of turn it over.
Thanks, Barb. Yeah, there's a couple of changes that we're trying to make to the bylaws. They were amended a few years ago to allow, initially they required a detached garage only. They were amended to allow for an attached garage, but they didn't take into account that the lots on 2nd Street are a sloped lot. The 2 buildings that are in the development so far were both built on 3rd Street. And so this hadn't really been an issue before, because the lots have been empty, no one's been trying to build. So it didn't really come to anyone's attention that the rules that were in place kind of reflected what worked for 3rd Street lots, but not so much for 2nd Street lots. So there's a couple changes we're asking to make. One that's not related to the garages is just allowing the use of or changing the rules so that it does not require all natural materials. That's from 20 years ago and it's quite outdated. And there are a lot of materials today that look very similar to wood and wear much better that people would like to be able to use that just didn't exist 20 years ago when these bylaws were initially written. So we're updating to allow for a bit more flexibility in the type of material you can use. And then we are making these changes to the rules around attached, detached, and tuck under garages. When the amendment was done to allow for attached garages, unfortunately, the way that it was written, a lot of things were not clear. For example, when you had a detached garage, you had a very small setback from the side yard, but now that it's attached, would that still apply? Or would you go by the setback requirements for the house because it's now connected to the house? So there were just a lot of things that weren't thought of when that amendment was done that we've tried to clarify with this amendment, exactly what rules we follow in the garage is either attached to or tucked under the house. So those are the big picture goals there. I mean, you can see kind of Jeff and I have been working on this and I provided him with a red line. I think we were scrolling through it a minute ago, so you can see exactly what was changed in addition to just the clean text of the proposal. Happy to answer questions if people have any.
And I will also add that at our annual meeting last October, our group, which is 8 owners, was unanimous in agreement on asking for these changes.
Okay. Is there anyone else in the audience that would like to speak on the subject? Go ahead, Mr. Michaels.
Bob Michaels. I think I should be pointed out that on the 3rd Street lots, there is a house that's built. Okay, they made this amendment back in 2015. Attached garage. And they registered it with the county correctly. But they didn't come to you, to this board for approval. Is that
They
right?
did. They
Oh,
did.
Oh.
Yeah, that was a mistake.
Okay.
Jeff was later able to find the record that it had gone through the planning commission.
Oh, and then what was the outcome of that?
Approved. Yeah, so the amendment, the attached garage amendment they did before is.
Oh, was it?
It was properly approved.
Having living
It
space.
was a record keeping issue and not a lack of approval.
So the record, excuse me, the living space over the garage is something,
That was not addressed in
but that's what
prior.
we're addressing that now.
That's part of what we're addressing, yeah.
Sorry.
No worries.
Thank you. Does anybody else desire to speak on the subject? Is anybody online did you say no one's online?
Well, there's a few people on YouTube, I'm on Zoom, but let me just check YouTube again. And I don't see anyone watching on YouTube, so.
Okay. We have various correspondence as to this. These are 2 new things that we got, right? One is from George Pete, who is a planning commission member, but I think he speaks as a citizen.
Yep, he lives in that area, so he felt the need to comment. We also received some correspondence. There were 3 pieces, I believe, that were part of the packet that went out because we had received them in time.
I got those and 2 today.
And then we have 2 new ones that were received today.
One from Carol Clark, and that's her second one. Then it looks like it's Jim Dyka, right?
Yes, so there should be one from Joel Clark that was sent in on.
I have that.
And then we have one from Jim Dyka, and then we have, it looks like 2 from Carol Clark and 1 from George.
One from George.
Just make sure that we have them all.
Everybody have all those and had a chance to review them?
Yes.
All right. And with no more correspondence or requests to provide comment, I would move to close the public hearing for discussion amongst planning commissioners and Mr. Nix. Anybody want to write a second on that? All right, did I make the motion?
You did.
All right, then we'll second that. We'll close the public hearing. And go into discussion. Larry, do you want to start us off with your thoughts? And I know that we started off thinking we weren't gonna vote, because we we're only gonna have 5, but we have enough today to move this forward. Do we have it, Jeff? We have 6.
We have 6.
We have Bill too.
Back in the beginning of time,
Oh, boy. Order pizza.
oh no, let's have some coffee. No, this only goes back to 2004. So it's not really the beginning of
I was
time,
3
but
years
rather
old.
it's the beginning of this project. This came to us, many of you may remember the Heinz property. That's what this is commonly referred to as the original owner of this piece as Mr. Heinz or Mrs. Heinz or both. And Rob Mossberg came in with a request to build a single family home with a detached garage with a single entry point off of the street to a back entry drive that would service the garage and the homes, trying to keep it in character with the neighborhood that was there. Smaller homes, detached garage, just kind of like what everything is like in the area. The association back in 2013 or 2014 amended their bylaws, then brought them to the planning code, amended their master deed to allow an attached garage, then brought it to the city planning commission. And the reason they had to do that is because originally this project was approved as a cluster development. The houses, the porch can be within 8 feet of the front property line. The house can be within 16 feet of the front property line.
Similar to what's right there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And then there's an area where a house can be constructed, a unit, and then there's also an area where a detached garage can be built. When they did the amendment and the city planning commission approved it in 2015, they allowed for the detached garage to be attached to the house or detached from the house. So you had an option as an owner of a lot. But what they didn't do, though, they didn't merge the 2 windows of where the principal dwelling could go and where the detached dwelling could go. Because on the site plan that was approved, there was a window where a house could be out by the street, and there was a window out by the rear yard is what we refer to them, is where the detached garage can be. Well, when they said the house could, and the garage could be attached, part of that garage then fell into this no man's land where you weren't supposed to build at all. That created a little problem, and as years passed, Jeff was, as a zoning administrator, found that, well, it's got to be one or the other. You can't do this. And there wasn't a melting of that, but it created some other problems with the second level. Could there be living units, space above it? And so they're trying to resolve those issues today. So I had some questions regarding the character, the area, the character of this development. And I'm not so sure that ship hasn't sailed because of the amendment the association did and the approval by the city planning commission in 2013 or 13 of that change to the master deed and the cluster development. So a cluster development that the city approved, this planning commission, or the body of the planning commission, because maybe Jack, you were there or not.
Possibly.
Probably, yeah. You've been around a long time.
Yeah.
It has the ability to modify the traditional setback standards and how things are used on a piece of property. And that's what they did. They modified the front yard setback, they modified the rear yard setback to accomplish a development that at the time in 2004, when it was approved, to meet the standard of the character of the area. But when that change occurred in 2013 with the merging of the detached garage to the dwelling, so the massing of the structure got a lot bigger. They didn't include some of the fine elements of doing that, like living space above that attached garage or outside appearance of that facility and materials, as was mentioned, and there are a few other things they're looking to alter. I'm not sure we're totally there yet with the language that's proposed, sorry. But I've raised some questions that I put in my memo to you about what needs to be reconsidered or considered in that vein. Questions about how we got to where we are today. Something you don't understand, something I confused you with.
Well, what you've done is gone through their proposals and redlined what changes you think would be appropriate, bring them where they need to be.
Yes, in the memo that I gave you today.
But
I was more referencing the kind of the history of this project, of how we got there. Yes, Vanessa.
there's eight lots.
Yes.
Technically, there's 9.
There's 9 lots.
Homeowner owns 2, and I doubt he'll ever build on the lot.
Okay.
And there's 2 homes that are built.
Yeah.
Correct?
Correct,
One has a detached, one has an attached.
correct.
Yes.
And
But
so the
those are-
attached came in after the 2013 then.
Yeah.
He was the homeowner that built that, was the one that put it before the planning commission to get the amendment done.
And has it always been the intent that folks, even the ones that will be on Second Street, would access their garages from Cottage Lane?
Yeah.
And is there going to be a drive from Second Street to connect into, I'm sorry.
No.
That's very helpful.
And will there be just so you know where I'm going, right? So it's always going to be Cottage Lane, and Cottage Lane is not going to go through to Second Street, so it's a thoroughfare.
Correct, yeah, no, it wouldn't work.
Well, I say, there was that hill,
Yeah.
Right.
but I do Cottage Hill all the time, so.
No, but that's a good overview.
What do you have pulled up?
Oh, I just
Google
have Google Maps, just being a little new to the area, I had to drive by and
Sure.
I'm trying to envision where, and now there's a house being built there right now, your house, okay.
But all the houses on Third Street are frankly completely different from the houses that are on Second Street because
They can be,
we're flat and they're not.
right.
So we have to deal with the hill, which ironically, Rob never, in our packet, our bylaw packet, there's a cute little house, which is what all the Third Street houses are, but the Second Street houses can't possibly look like that because of the hill. So he didn't take into consideration how you're gonna get from this detached garage up to your house over here.
It would just wouldn't be accessible. It wouldn't be ADA accessible.
not in the slightest. So that's why tucking the garage under the house,
They're also
Sense to us.
very small lots, so not having multiple structures taking up all the green space is somewhat desirable.
Mark
Did
asked.
you start your house, Audrey?
No.
No, but you're intending to move here with your family.
Oh, we live here already.
Yeah.
We just are having trouble with builders.
Okay,
We very much intend to build, and our lot is on Second Street.
okay.
Mark Bidet had asked me a question just prior to the meeting, and I thought it was a good one. He asked if there were any special concessions made at the time when this plan was originally approved in 2004. And I think it's worth pointing out, just as a note here, so they're in the R1C zoning district. Normally, the minimum lot width is 65 feet. And they did permit, when they originally approved this in 2004, to allow for these lots to be 55 feet. That does bring them, and I believe, I wasn't here at the time,
So you got 10 feet.
they reduced 10 feet, but I think the reasoning for that is that all of the lots in the Southern and Crandall's addition on 3rd and 4th Street, those lots, that Southern and Crandall's addition, are 52.8 feet wide. So I think that was the intent, was to be similar to those lots that were already there. Another point also is back in the 1990s, the Southern and Crandall's addition created a special exception because their lots were so narrow that where they had normally have a 20-foot front yard setback, if they lowered the overall height of the home, they could have a 15-foot front yard setback. And that if they kept the height of the front porch low enough, that porch would be able to extend 7 feet into the front yard setback. And I believe that that's where the language for this condo property, with them being able to have similar front yard setbacks and then the porch going further, where that language came from in creating similarities with that. Obviously, when you have a situation where you're making exceptions, usually there's another request to compensate for that. And that's where normally the rear yard setback in R1C is, I believe, either 30 or 35 feet. They had a rear yard setback for the principal building of 57 feet, creating that narrower window of where the home could be located. They then had that separate building envelope, as Larry pointed out, for a detached garage. And then in 2013 is when they came and they asked for another window where they would be able to put that attached garage adjacent to the home. And when originally reviewing Audrey's request for their building, they had the attached garage location, but then they had some living area that was spilling into that attached area. And I didn't feel that the original modification in 2013 opened up and created the ability for living to spill outside of the principal building area into the attached garage area. So
Okay.
if that helps to clarify
Help you
things.
out, Mark?
Well, yeah, and the other thing that sticks in my mind in this one is under cluster zoning option. And correct me if I'm wrong with this, but if I'm in the wrong place, but it says the primary objective of the cluster zoning option is to preserve open space or specific geological features for the common use and enjoyment of the property owners by the clustering or grouping together of housing units. So is that part of the consideration when this was originally granted, that they were trying to create more open space? You know, that's why you had the limited footprint areas for both the house, you know, they're given some advantages, you know, to come into a setback and shorter setbacks on the front and all that stuff. How should we interpret that?
I guess I don't have a thought on that one way or the other, because that's probably more in depth. I wasn't here at the time. Larry might be able to have a better idea because he was, but
Well, part of the idea wasn't so much the creating of more open space, Mark, but rather to mimic the neighborhood and be consistent with the character of the neighborhood, the Southern Crandall neighborhood specifically, with this 2nd, 3rd Street area, the Heinz property. That was probably given more consideration than the whole notion of open space. That then was really erased with that separation of the two structures on the property when they amended the master deed and the planning commission approved that in 2013. So what we have now is a master deed that doesn't really work well with the amendment that they created and we approved back in 2013. And they're trying to resolve some of those technical issues that are starting to come to light with the master deed. Zoning isn't really a problem. It's the elements of the master deed that we have approved as a city that is the real problem here. It's nothing that, in essence, we did. It's something they created that we thought, okay, probably didn't give a tremendous level of focus and concentration on what the words were saying because it was something they desired. But okay, they convinced us, we approved it. And now it's coming to fruition that, whoops, there's some real technical problems here. And they're trying to resolve those problems with this proposed amendment they have before us.
The areas that in 2013, when you allowed the garages to be attached, did that change the overall footprint area of, say, you know, per Jeff's point, you know, where you used to have the one window here for the garage, the one window here for the house,
Right.
but then they filled in between, but you couldn't do both. So did the square footages stay about the same as far as where the envelopes where they could build?
Yes.
They do, and the detached garage actually takes up more green space than the attached garage. And so the homeowner that has the attached garage actually has more green space and more yard space because that garage is attached.
Seems to make sense.
One thing, it wasn't part of their submittal, but I have from the first amendment that was done in 2013, they had a site plan showing the building envelopes for the principal building, the attached garage and detached garages. And I can pass this around if you want to hand that down. And what it does is on each of the sites, it creates a separate building envelope for each portion. There's the P area that's labeled for the principal building.
Okay.
And that's original from the original site plan, master deed that was done back in 2004. And there's an area labeled G, which is for the detached garages. And that's again, an area that remains the same from the original plan in 2004. But you can see that there's a new area that's attached to the principal building area labeled A for attached garage. And that creates the building envelope for an attached garage. And I believe, and Barb, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but if they choose to opt for an attached garage, they cannot also have a detached garage. Right.
One or the other.
It's either or.
They get either or. In addition, they can have one small, very small shed as another accessory building.
But unfortunately, what's wrong with that is that you can't do the detached off of Second Street because of the topography.
You probably could, because remember, their access to their home and their property is from that Cottage Lane. So obviously there's a topographical change between Second Street and Cottage Lane. So it would be at a lower level. So realistically, if you were to have an attached garage, it would basically be equivalent to a basement level garage with a walkout basement.
Okay.
And I think one of the things that is maybe the confuser here between zoning and their master plan is normally in zoning, when you have a garage that's fully attached to the home, it's just part of the principal building and it has to meet all of the requirements of the principal building, right? So we no longer look at it as a separate building. It's just all part of the same feature. It has to meet all the same setbacks. And I believe what they've tried to do here, because when you look at the language that they have, even though they have an attached garage building area that is, I believe, 33 feet deep and was it 40 feet wide? I don't remember exactly the exact width. It's a fairly large area that it could encompass. But they do limit specifically that the size of the garage is limited within that attached garage area to 576 square feet, which would be the equivalent of a 2-car garage, 24 by 24.
Okay.
So even though they have that area, it could move around within that space, but could not exceed 576. If they wanted it to be bigger, the extra garage area would have to go into the principal building area. So that's the difference that has kind of created the issue here. Is they created an area saying the attached garage could go within this space and be adjacent to the home. But then when we apply our zoning, we have our principal building area, which says that all of the living space has to be within that principal building area. So that's why when you take zoning combined with their attached garage, and I looked at that literally, that they requested garage to be within that space. So when we saw a plan that had some living space above the garage and some porch area above the garage, I said, no, that's part of the principal building. It needs to be within that setback. The only thing that can be in that attached garage area, based on the amendment that they did in 2013, is solely garage space.
Okay.
So they're looking to modify their language to be able to have living space and porch space and stairwells in that attached garage area.
Okay.
So I believe, and forgive me if I'm putting words in your mouth because it's not my intent, but I believe that's your goal, is to be able to have some of those amenities within that attached garage area above the attached garage. Hopefully, I'm not mistaken anything.
Pretty small areas, right? You're
Very.
trying to make it work for families, et cetera. Okay. Does that help you out, Mark?
Yeah, thank you. You explained it very well. I guess my other next question, the line of thought is, how are they as far as lot coverage? Are we going over any lot coverages given these smaller lots?
The lot coverage isn't changing really at all.
Okay.
Because you're just moving the detached accessory building and making it attached. They're not, the detached accessory building was basically the same size, 576 square feet. So they're just making that where you can attach it to the house. And they did that in 2013.
And the goal
The
being,
site plan that we're looking at here, this was the one that was approved in 2013.
Yes.
Can I make another comment? Audrey's house, for example, the way they have it designed so far, her garage is completely within the principal building envelope, so she actually has a lot less lot coverage and much more green
Yes,
space.
yes, in that instance, yes.
We're year round, so we want the garage to be accessible from the house as possible. And we have little kids, so we want to have a yard space. So yes, ours is very small.
what you're trying to accomplish here is the garage that you can get in from the house and have more green space on a
Yeah.
small lot.
Exactly.
Now, that's Audrey's goal, but at
Okay,
the same time, they're modifying their master deed to allow what Audrey wants to do, but it's going to apply to all the spaces. So we have to think about what she is doing is making a very compact living accessory building space. Others may take the language very literally and expand it to what the maximum would allow. And that's what you have to also think about that
sure.
in this process of what could be there.
Could be pretty tight.
Well, and as an example,
The footprint of the building space is somewhere around 2,100 square feet, the footprint of the principal building space. And then you add to that the expansion area of an attached accessory building of 576 square feet, which could be in addition to that. But there are limitations within their master deed about how big spaces can be on the second level, if I recall correctly.
Yeah.
Then-
75% of the first level, which is very.
Yeah,
hard to design.
75%. Yes, thank you.
But the overall, the entire house is 2,500 square feet,
Right.
25 to 50 or something.
well, I'm looking here at the language, and if it's a one-story building, it's limited to 1,000 square feet. If it's a two-story building, it's limited to 2,600 square feet.
Okay, so that they have limits in there.
I think it's actually that the 1,000 is the minimum
Oh,
that you can
the
do.
minimum, yes.
Correct, thank you.
Minimum 1,000.
Minimum of
Minimum
1,000, maximum of 2,600 on 2 floors.
Now, given the image that's on the screen, I looked at section 41.1 for the principal building. Their language states that in the third item, their rear yard setback of 57 square feet, 57 feet or greater, which is what the normal principal building is on their site. Then they go on to say the building face, or to the building face, 33 feet to or greater to porch and stairs. And I couldn't quite figure out
We,
that area that I redlined out. What are they talking about?
no, we deleted that based on your recommendation or Jeff's recommendation.
Okay, that
So
makes
that's why
sense.
it's struck out.
Oh,
So that was never there. That was just an initial draft of our revision. But
okay.
as it is right now in the master deed, it just says 57 feet or greater.
Okay. That, because what I got to review was, it said those.
Yeah, there's been a few versions of
Okay.
it.
Well, the last version that we had from you did include that.
And also in that section, for my memo, they're on the next page, Victor, for the detached garage in section 414, there's a phrase has been repeated twice in that. And I don't know if that's in the original or not, but what's being proposed is what I commented on. So it's up, scroll down just a little bit, or scroll up, the other, up and down, it always confuses me. Go back, top of page 2.
Next.
Okay, there's a section there that basically states the same thing twice, including, no, that's not it. That Victor has highlighted there. So that repeated phrase needs to be stricken. So, and then in section 4.1.112, and it says a must have a detached garage, single car encouraged and 2-car maximum is, I'm not sure there's a need for that language. Okay, then at the top of that line there, it's the 4.1.4.1 may be attached to or incorporated within the principal structure. Now that's under the heading of a attached accessory building. If I remember correctly. Yeah, attached garage option. Okay, well, inherent in what that whole section is about is attaching a garage. So you don't need that first 4.1 that's there, may be attached or incorporated within the principal structure. That's inherent in what that whole section is saying. So we don't need to say that again.
I think we said that because there was the confusion when I was speaking with Jeff over and maybe this is accounted for with the references to living space, but when our initial plans were denied, it was because the garage was tucked under rather than attached to the back. So I think we were just trying to make it clear that it could be either as long as it meets these requirements. It can be incorporated into the principal, that's okay, and it can be behind but attached to it, if that makes sense.
I understand what you're saying, but we don't distinguish in our zoning code if it's underneath or attached in the back end
Yeah,
of
that's
it.
not an issue for you, then that's
Yeah.
fine.
Is there an issue with that?
No, the only issue with the initial plan was that there was portions of the principal building, not just garage, that were expanding beyond the 57-foot rear yard setback. That's why I couldn't,
The second level.
But when we,
the main level home.
yeah,
okay.
but when we were speaking, you also mentioned about you weren't sure that the amendment allowed tuck under garages. That didn't seem to be what was intended. So I think that's where it came from. Just our concern was maybe there was some issue there. If there's not an issue for the city, then it's not an issue for us.
Okay.
Sorry if I confused you.
If you go, just don't move the screen, Victor, please. Right above that area in the opening paragraph of attached garage option, down at the end, the second line, at the end, it talks about a principal building envelope or the attached garage building.
No, very
Envelope.
last sentence.
Very, very last,
There it is.
right there, from there. And it needs to be and or the attached garage, because really attaching a garage is an option. See, it can be incorporated with or is I think would be appropriate there. The attached garage may be constructed within the principal building envelope and or the attached garage building envelope.
Because with just the or, it would have to be one or the other, but it couldn't overlap between them. With the and or it could, is that your?
Yes, that's exactly correct. And I think that's what they want to do. They don't want it to either be over here or over here. It needs to be an either so they can use the whole space to do that. Because if they attach the garage, the rear yard setback goes to 33 feet as opposed to the 57 feet by their standard.
I'll just bring up something that here, this is a more recent version than that, which I think, Jeff, you have this, because this has and in it.
We made most of the changes that
Is
the
that my memo?
recommended.
That is a memo from November 12th.
Okay, that's my memo to the planning commission. Yes, yes, and that's what my suggestion was, and I'm explaining to the planning commission what we're proposing to change in your documents, and you're saying that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, I think
We're
you're
tracking.
saying you've already.
We
we just gotta get in the same church, in the same pew here, and keep this bus moving
Well, I
forward.
think, maybe, and again, this is the planning commission's role, but if you guys are predisposed to thinking this works, maybe the situation can be that Larry and I work with them to come up with a final draft that creates the way for us to do this, or if you feel that there are further things that need to be hashed out to, for them to get special land use approval.
I'm getting the sense that you guys are on the same page and that with Larry's suggestions, everybody's okay with that. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Yeah,
Larry, is that accurate?
Well, I think so, I just was reviewing
I
everything to
don't
make
mind
sure
going
we
through
all
them a
understand.
little bit more because some of these are new. You can go through them.
Okay, and
Quickly.
I'll kind of breeze through them here. 401 I struck for purpose, and then that renumbered a bunch of stuff. I added 47 there. The floor above the attached garage may be used as living space, which made sense. Okay, that space above the garage could be, if it's attached to the house, just like it is anywhere else, we can live in it. That made sense. They agree. We agree. I agree. The planning commission, yeah, that makes sense. Okay, moving on. I added number 11 at the bottom. The building, including the principal building and the attached garage, shall also adhere to the provisions of, and all those numbers reference back to a principal building. Because that's in essence what this is. When you attach the garage, all the rules of a principal building apply.
Like square footage limits.
Square
and all
footage
that.
limits, setbacks, everything.
Yep, they're not gaining more. They
They're not
gotta- they
gaining a
gotta-
thing.
Yep,
Other than we're allowing them, that they want to allow the attachment of that garage to the house. Okay, and so I just made a reference to all the rules of the principal building apply.
The setbacks that you reference, are they for for this development, or are they the regular zoning for R1C?
I'm referencing back to the master deed,
So it goes back to their.
to the
whenever they were
cluster
doing that,
development
when they were
approval. that
allowed
we're-
to be a cluster
Yes,
and not to R1C.
correct, right. Because if you will, we made special rules in the cluster development for setbacks and how these lots can be used. Next page, please, Victor. Keep moving along here. Okay, so that was the changes that I had suggested. Okay? And it sounds like the group agrees. I'm with the changes that I've suggested, and you're not having any questions right now. But, okay,
Larry, I've got a question.
Bill does. All right.
Have we talked about the detached garage and the guest quarters? Your memo seems to stop before that.
It's not addressed because it's permitted within the zoning quote. Guest quarters in the, above a detached garage can be considered. But there's a lot of space limitation though for the second level in a detached garage.
So I saw on the red line from Audrey that it used to say no living space, but that's been crossed out. So is that part of this request, is to allow guest quarters above a detached garage?
Well, part of their request is to allow the detached garage, should they choose to go that route as opposed to attached, to be 2 stories, and that second floor could be then living space. That change doesn't mean that they wouldn't have to also go through special land use approval for guest quarters if they chose that option.
Got it. Okay. And then I was looking at Mrs. Clark's letter and I was trying to make sure that we're considering her questions. And she mentioned something about, have you seen their garage? It's huge already. And Audrey, you don't have anything, right? I mean, nothing's built there.
No, I have a beautiful craft space.
Okay.
No, nothing is built on it.
But
Or
is-
any of the Second Street lots, no one's built yet.
Yeah.
Yeah, and is there something about additional mailing street numbers that is a factor here?
Yeah, they have the same address as she does across the street, except she's Third Street and they're Cottage Lane, but it's the
Oh.
same number. And I think that there's probably some inconveniences with mail and so forth,
Oh, I see.
because they have the same house number.
All right.
But usually house numbers are assigned on a grid basis. And so you could have two parallel streets, one
Yes.
Second Street, one Third Street, and we could have 430 on each, 440, 450. And that could repeat multiple times, like north of Lake Street from Layton Park down to Hoyt Street. There's got to be a lot of duplicate numbers there because it's based on a grid. And how far you are from a point of assigning numbers and then either north or south.
Okay, I get it. Thank you.
But is there something that the residents in the area are having an issue with the aesthetics of these homes? It seemed like a lot of folks that we were hearing from were making comments on the character of the home.
But they haven't been built.
Well, two have.
Okay.
We're pretty strict about our,
I
they're
think,
pretty small cottagey style. I would be a bit surprised that two that have been built. And the one was built back in like the early 2000s. I think it's been there a really long time. And then the other one in 2013. They're both pretty small cottage style. I mean, the square footage of the house is really limited.
Yeah, I mean, as a matter of fact, I
remember that.
couldn't even tell.
I do
when was
recall that
driving
one
by.
being built. We're looking at, you guys know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
And then another concern was traffic. Did I read that correct? It's,
Yeah,
in traffic and noise,
toys,
and noise.
toys,
And noise.
noise and toys.
Did anybody share any of those concerns or consider? I mean, to me, it doesn't seem like that's going to be a huge problem in the area. I mean,
I think,
we're gonna have some traffic.
I mean, you know, I'm not to say what's best for the community, but I think that when they originally approved of this project, by requiring them to create their own drive, their private drive back there with one point of access, I think that was probably a good decision at the original time in 2004, because it instead of having 8 to 10 new driveways all accessing Second, Third Street, we created one point of entry for them to all go in and access. Similar to when Easy Street was put in, or when Washington Court was put in, where, you know, they have one point of access and everybody has their driveway off of that, as opposed to multiple driveways coming out on the main street.
So
It helps
Steve,
to eliminate.
we've already tried to address that with some good thinking.
Yep.
Just want to make sure we do address all the concerns that George had indicated he's opposed to rezoning. I think maybe he used the wrong word. We're not rezoning here.
No.
And then I did see the architecture and ambience that is desired with the area. There's concern about that, but have you all had a chance to look at the house that's there and what that looks like? In my opinion, it seems to jive with what we have here, or like in Easy Street, in other similar neighborhoods, or my 100-year-old house. Okay.
And if I could make one other comment, sorry to
No, please
put in
do.
here, but just because there were a couple comments about turning the driveway into a street. And I do want to just point out that when this was originally done, that was given a name back in 2004 of Cottage Lane. 911 addressing requires us, and I believe it's county policy, and we go along with a lot of the county policies, that when you have a drive like that and there are 2 or less homes on it that are accessing off of a drive, they permit them to have an address off of the main street that they're on. So while we had 2 homes that were there, they had their addresses on 3rd Street. But now that we have new homes coming in, we had an application for the 3rd home, which is our Wallace's home. That put us over the threshold where now we have 3, in the future 4 or 5 homes that will all be accessing off of this private drive. The policies for 911 addressing require us to name that drive, which we already came up with the name for it in the original 2004 plan, and address the properties off of that private drive, as opposed to continuing the process of addressing them off of 3rd Street or 2nd Street.
And you're all good with 911?
That's why we, yes.
That's why you did that?
When we created all of these addresses, I worked with Donna Kagi at Emmett County GIS. She does the 911 addressing for them. We worked with the property owners. They were aware that there was a change happening for the 2 properties that were there.
Okay.
And everything. So we've been working that process out, and I believe that there haven't been any issues with anything since we've done that. Correct.
Okay.
Just a clarification on that.
Here, just one more question. So they're asking that if there's a detached garage, that they could put a 2nd story on that for residential use?
It's not a full 2nd story. It actually, it's pretty much built into the roof line of the garages.
So are they asking to add additional living space above there? Just different or additive to what's allowed in the P envelope, where they can build, because of their size limitations? Is that in addition to that?
Yes, and I passed around the sheet from the First Amendment, and that showed the 3 building envelope areas. So in that area labeled G for the detached garage, currently their language in the original document said 1 story and no living space above. They're changing that from 1 stories to 2 and removing the limitation of no living, so that there could then be living there.
There could be
But
guest
the question
quarters.
is that in addition to the amount of square footage they're allowed for living space in the?
No, you either build an attached garage or a detached garage. You can't do both.
And is your question though, the living space has to stay the same, you don't get more?
Yeah, that's my question.
That's it,
Yeah.
that's what you.
Thank you, yeah.
that was kind of-
I don't know about that, because they have their language for the principal building that says there's a maximum of 2,600.
Right.
And then they have their separate language for the detached garage, which could then have living space above that. I don't
It's
think,
additive.
I don't think that with the language they have, that if, let's say that they had a 576 square foot detached garage with up to that same amount above it or slightly less, with the wording that they have, I don't think that would be a reduction in the overall square footage of the principal building.
So we are adding.
Yeah, and that's similar to, I don't think that's any different than what we have in our regular R16 zoning.
Well, the only reason I question is because it's, it originally started off as a cluster development, which has certain requirements, or a quid pro quo process went through. And that has changed over time, as Larry talked about 2013. I don't know if I fully agree with that, that would change its actual character. But since, the square footage just didn't change even then. So I just wonder how that relates to if somebody who owns a lot in the same area, R1C, would they be allowed to do the same things that these folks are doing? They can't, because the setbacks are different, right? And all that kind of stuff.
Well, in the R1C, in detached garage, you can have a 2nd story
You can do that,
with accessory living quarters there.
Right, you can have that,
Yeah, you can have that.
but they couldn't build as close to the setback. They have different setback requirements. Is that correct?
Oh, yes, they have normal setbacks, and actually for a detached garage, I guess it is a little bit less than this development. Yes, for the detached building.
Right. Okay. So they are increasing.
But actually, in the R1C district, you could have a garage attached to your house, I think, and you could have a detached garage or detached storage area. Where in this development, you can't have both. If you have an attached garage, you can't have a detached garage. You can only then build a small shed that's like 100 or 120 square feet, if I remember correctly.
It's very small.
Yeah, it's very small.
There's,
They
if you
call
look,
it a garden shed.
if you look from Third Street, one of the white and blue house has one of the sheds and it's very small, so it's like nothing.
It's like 100 square feet.
Yeah.
That's what it is, 10 by 10 or
Yeah.
10 by 12.
And anything bigger would have to go through like the special.
Well, it
zoning.
doesn't, it's not permitted.
It's not
It's not
permitted, so they
allowed.
can't even,
Yeah,
they can't even go through the motions.
that's right. There is no option for them.
I mean, look, look at the shed. I mean, the shed is like, looks like a doghouse.
There's no
Yeah, let's make sure
clear-
that everybody has a chance to see
There's
this.
some
as we're looking
unintended
it up.
consequence
Yeah.
that occurs, like in the past when things went all the way through.
If you guys want to see what the shed
We're approving.
size that's
And
allowed.
since we've been promoting additional living spaces in the city, I'm cool with
It's a
that.
plus,
Yeah. it's a
as I
plus.
see it.
I just want to be clear that everybody understands what they're doing and that,
Maximum square
allowing
footage of
more.
80
than
Okay.
they agreed to in this
For the,
area.
they call it the
No, I'm
accessory
with you.
building.
Okay.
So
And it's
it's a
80
little,
I support that.
yeah.
That's what
I
we
do
want.
find that interesting that the accessory building.
Let's just get one conversation going on at a time. Just,
It's, yeah.
do you need a gavel, Jack?
No, because I'm the one who violates.
So that's just, that, you can see the shed or the auxiliary building that's allowed. You can get a sense of how small that really is.
Yeah, yeah. It's just something to keep excess toys at, small toys.
And it doesn't look like they're proposing any changes to they have it under here as accessory building. It's a 5-foot side yard setback and rear yard setback, which I believe is similar to our accessory building setback in the R1C. Maximum height of 17 feet, building height of 1 stories. Eaves, setbacks, bay windows may not encroach into setbacks, which I think is actually more restrictive than our zone, and we do permit that to some extent. Maximum square footage of 80 feet, complementary architecture to a principal residence.
Rich, go ahead.
I have a question about the living space above the garage. Is this going to be part of the main house or is this going to be a separate living quarters?
If it's detached, it would be separate.
No, on the attached garage,
That would be part of the house.
Part of the house.
it would be part of the house. On 4.99, you make a change from no exterior stairwells to exterior stairwells being approved. Why that change?
Just as, I think it was really more of a fire escape type.
Yeah, logistics to be able to access your backyard from the house.
Okay.
Because otherwise you'd have to go out the front door, down the hill and around the back. Or you'd have to have an interior.
So there wouldn't be any means to get to the garage from the space above.
Exactly, like we have a porch on ours and you would be stranded on the porch unless you went through the whole house, out the front door and around. So it was an accessibility of the backyard issue.
Okay, thank you.
Does building code allow access from living quarters above a garage directly into a garage?
I don't know that I would be able
Yeah,
to.
the building code allows it, but you have to have a fire barrier around the whole garage, and then the stairwell would have to be fire rated. It's 1 hour, it's very easy to do. And doors have to only be rated like every 45 minutes or something. But yes, you can do it.
Any other thoughts? Any members of the commission have more thoughts? Larry?
Does it make sense to you? What they're proposing, I guess, is the real crux to the question.
That's Yes, to me it does.
Okay.
That how, as I was speaking a little bit about that area, that house was built a while and kind of sat there, and now we seem to have some excitement about making this work. The area looks like it could use, it's pretty open in a lot of spaces.
Oh, yeah.
And I think this is a nice idea, well thought out. We always want to be careful to address the concerns of the folks. We've talked about that, and I think we've been fair because we do have to consider those, but I like it. I do. I think it's a good area for this, and I would approve.
And all you're so long as we understand it and we get the gist of it,
Yep.
and we don't have a problem with the gist of it, you're really just asking to clean it up and work with them, right?
Yes, yes.
That is a fair way to say it.
Yep.
And then it's good to have your guidance, and you seem to be happy with this. And what I do like is that all your suggestions seem logical and were accepted without fail. True?
And so then your action this evening, if you so choose to take one, would be to approve their request, given the modifications as suggested. And so you would be amending the special land use approval that was granted previously for this Harbor Cottage project.
Anybody want to make a motion?
I will.
Okay, go for it, Al.
I'll make a motion to do.
You'll what he said.
Use
Clean
those
up
words.
your language, and I think we're all in agreement, so let's move forward with this.
Okay. Do I have a second?
Yes, I second that.
Okay, Emily Dubay seconds it. In this one, you want to take a roll call?
I think that would be a good idea. We'll start with Rick Tarczynski. Yeah. Vanessa Warren,
Yes.
Emily Dubay,
Yes.
Jack Deegan,
Yes.
Mark Goudet.
Yes.
I
Bill
can't do
can't
Bill,
vote.
Al Dyka.
Yes.
And correct me if I'm wrong, Victor, but they're no longer allowing participation via Zoom, so Bill gets to participate in discussion, but we can't have a vote.
Correct.
All right.
Okay.
I'm sorry to exclude you, Bill, but
That's
I can't.
okay.
We have sufficient, the motion passes.
Oh, can I make one comment? We are real strict about our architectural plans and what we approve, so in keeping with the neighborhood, what the original intention was, using good quality materials and anyway, we look them all very carefully. And thank you.
Okay, that was
Thank
good.
you.
Nice job. Thank you.
I guess I would suggest if put together that modification in one clean package and submit it to Jeff so he can, yep, that's exactly what they approved, and move forward from there quickly.
Either tomorrow or sometime early next week, we can, if that works for you guys.
Yep, we can definitely do that.
Whatever, yeah.
Thank you.
That way there's no question about what we just did this evening.
Yeah, before we all forget what we did.
You're not that old yet.
Can I ask one question?
Yes, Bob. Thank you.
Just to clear up, and for me, is, if you have living space above the garage, you can also have 2,600 square foot in the house. An attached garage.
Well, that's part of the living space.
That's part of.
The
So
space above the garage is all part of the living space in the house. So whatever's on the main floor, the floor above the main structure, and if there's a walkout, where you have the garage below and the living space above, all the living space is included in that 2,600 square feet. That's what their bylaws say, or master deed says.
Yeah, you got 2,600 feet. That's it.
That's it.
That's it.
I think the only thing that wouldn't be part of the 2,600 would be the 576 of attached garage
There's a
space.
lot.
Yes.
But if it's living space,
The garage
counting.
itself, storage area.
Correct,
Yeah, if it's living space, it's counting.
Yes.
that's right.
That's what Mark wanted clarified. Okay. All good, Bob?
It's fun,
I think you guys did all right today.
You can make it work.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on to section 4C. Site plan review, 300 West Lake Street, Ingersoll and Hogg Properties, and I know we have a memorandum, and this doesn't involve, we open a public hearing for this.
No, this is just a site plan review.
Just discussion.
Yep.
And I think we have a couple gentlemen that are gonna speak on
Okay.
the issue.
I do want to quickly point out, and I apologize for this, apparently I left the actual site plan out of the packet.
Right.
So we do have that pulled up on the screen,
Okay.
and we will fix the packet and get that corrected and put online
Okay.
with that document.
This one's a little easier to conceptualize. Now we got it there, and I think these gentlemen are here. How you doing?
Hi,
Good. So why don't you go ahead?
My name is Dennis Hogg, and I'm the owner of the IGA. And I have Scott Brown with me, who is my general manager. And he's also going to be the owner of the IGA someday. So he has a concern in this also.
We need this store, so that's good.
So we're here today because of the growth that we have experienced at the IGA. We're growing outside of the existing buildings that we have. And so recently, I don't know if you all know that, but we vacated the pet pantry building, moved that business over to the Fairview Plaza, and we are now going to use the old pet pantry building as our warehouse. Now, to make that more efficient, we have gotten Troy Bosker to be our contractor. What we're proposing to do is between those two existing buildings, the IGA and the pet pantry, there's about a 7-foot, I don't know if you'd call it a space, I don't know if you call it an actual alleyway. But what we're proposing to do is to enclose that space and join the two buildings with a hallway. So some of that space will become storage. And then in the hallway, there will be access so that we can go back and forth between the two buildings. And so we're also going to have the proper, exit doors, and on the outside of the building, on the back, on the Harrison side of the building, there will be an additional door put on so that deliveries can be made directly into a produce area. And there's already an existing roll-up door that's on the back of the pet pantry that we use. And so that's all we're asking for. We just want to be able to do that, close that in, and of course, we would be respectful for all the, the inspections and everything that's required. And we have Troy Bosker as our contractor, and he is going to do all that, make sure that it's all done properly, and it will help us grow that business and to serve the community. So we're hoping for your approval.
Right.
So when you get deliveries by semis, they come in through, is that Adrian Street?
I do not know the name of it. It looks like it, that's the name of it. A Dream?
Adrian? Is that where the semis are coming
Well,
in?
they come in on Harrison, in the back of the building.
Okay,
And so then we offload though, because we don't have like a ramp.
you don't have a dock.
That's correct. And so Scott is our main guy. He uses the forklift. So we take that off, and then it's been a really great thing now because we're able to take the product, if it's inclement weather, which is, you're like scrambling because you have all this stuff. So now we can take it right into the pet pantry building, where before we'd have to put tarps over it. And I don't know if you've ever seen in the summertime, in the height of the summer, we have all this stuff out in the back parking lot, which doesn't look good for the people who have to live along there. This really is going to clean up all of that and make it's a lot more efficient for us. And so anyway, to answer your question, that's where the trucks pull up on Harrison. They're offloaded, and then all the product is immediately taken inside, which is a big improvement.
I'm gonna miss the ice dams that happen between those two buildings.
The what?
The ice
Ice
dams.
Oh,
dams.
yeah.
Yeah, the real creative flashing up there come winter time.
Yes. Yeah.
I miss the incinerator.
That
I
goes
lived on
back-
Washington Street. and-
Yeah, that goes back a long way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I used to cover my car with
I think
ashes.
It's great, very logical idea.
Yeah, I like the idea.
Okay.
It does seem to make sense. Larry, you gave us a memorandum here, and it has some information. You want to make a couple comments?
Sure. Basically, from a site plan standpoint and these two buildings being linked, it makes sense and it complies with all the requirements of the zoning code. I did note though, in the site plan up in the northwest corner, along the street and along the north side of the property on that street, there's markings there where it's employee parking in that area between the property line and the physical street itself. That's not supposed to happen. It probably has been going on for years though, more than likely. And I'm not sure if the city's ever received any complaints about that. I kind of have a feeling I understand why it happens, just to free up those. When I went by there this evening, there were about 8 cars that were parked and some of them had been vacated because I could tell because it was green underneath and it was white all around it because of a little bit of snow that's been falling. So it's something that if the city does get complaints, technically you're not supposed to have employees parked there, that have them parked on the outer sides or other places. But I couldn't not make comment on that. It's a small space. You're doing great business there. I think it's the only grocery store in town, if I remember correctly, over the last 30 years. And I certainly don't want to discourage or poo-poo the business, but it's something that isn't supposed to be going on, just for information.
Yeah, we're sensitive to that, and I never had anyone say to me that they were offended by us. In the height of the summer, this is when it really took hold, is the fact we just don't have enough space. The parking lot is jammed. And so like you're saying, to accommodate the customers, our employees park in the grass area there. So that's not ideal, but we've taken some trees out to facilitate that, which I hated to do, but some of them needed to come down. And so, when you have a grocery store like that, you're trying to juggle the whole thing. You're trying to do the best you can with what you have.
Sure.
So,
The reason we did that is a couple years ago, customers actually parked, we were parking in the parking lot, and customers were parking on the outside street, walking out.
Okay,
So it just seemed like
let's trade.
safe to have people off the street coming in.
It's safer to have it this
They're
way.
bringing cars out on the road and everything else. It's just.
Leaving them out on the side streets and you got to chase them down or look in backyards for them.
Yeah, I've got a question for Dennis.
Hey, Bill.
Hi, guys. Hey, is there something going on with the portico in this version of the plan?
Yeah, so that's the next thing that we would like to do is we want to box that portico in. And the existing entrance that we have now will be moved that. So when people would come into the new portico area, that will become like a sale area. And when you walk in, we'll have shopping carts. Thank you. Shopping carts. And we might have like pallets of water and that kind of thing. Again, we just need more space. So we're going to have that as our new entrance. And so you come in there and then, I don't know if you're familiar with the store where the cash registers are, there's a bank of windows right there that faces that overhang. That's going to be the new door where you come in there. And so we have, contracted an architect for that, and we have Troy that's going to do that. We didn't want to get the cart ahead of the horse tonight because we're still dealing. We have talked with Victor and we've talked with Jeff. And we're trying to be sensitive to, the setbacks that we need. And there's also a little green strip that was involved in that. So we're trying to work our way through that. We've got, we just had a meeting this week with the architect, and then I contacted Benchmark Engineering, and they're gonna give us some definitive information on how that's all lining up and if we're able to do that. Apparently, years ago, Bill, the city abandoned that property to whoever owned the IGA at that time. It's really interesting. It's actually an alleyway that the city owned there.
I see that, yeah.
Yeah. And so the city abandoned that property. And so if we're going to go forward with that, though, we need to go, if I'm getting that right, and Jeff, maybe you can help. We have to go to city or to the circuit court.
We're doing that right now, Blair.
Yeah. And then to have that vacated. And so we're, it's a process, and that's what you guys do. And so we're learning about all this, and so we're just going through the process. So, I didn't want to get tangled up with that part of it. Yeah, but we're investing a lot of money into the IGA to make it better. And so we're hoping that that we can all, get together on this and make, the town really needs this grocery store. It really makes, you don't want to have a town that doesn't have a nice grocery store. So you'll see some owner operators that don't invest any money into their property. And we want to invest a sizable amount of money into it this year. And so to make it better, to make it more efficient, and Scott's had a lot of great ideas, and he's led us to that path of moving the pet pantry business over to Fairview Plaza. And that's been interesting. That actually has made that business prosper more. And we haven't changed the signage over there yet. But it's been a good thing. We're experiencing a lot of growth, a lot of positive feedback from all our customers. And so, so that's to answer your question. We are eventually going to do that also, if everything plays out all right.
So it's not really part of this request or preview.
Right.
No, for tonight, we were hoping is to keep this part simple. This is the first step in the process of making the store more efficient and better.
Something that I would like to have you give consideration to. I would assume in the wintertime, your employees park in the lot.
Yes.
Okay, because you don't plow that area. Between where the physical street is and the building itself, because your building is virtually right there at the property line. In some instances, you have the ability to petition the city to pave that area and create parking there. Okay, and that way it would be legal then.
Yes.
And we couldn't necessarily make it exclusively yours.
Right.
Okay, because it's in the city right of way, but who else is going to use it?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. That's a great.
So that way you could use it year round. Because as you grow and you make other improvements, you may, probably during the holidays, you do get pretty busy.
Yeah.
Probably in January and February, you're not so busy. So, but there's still people here. There's still people that use your store because you got a lot that winter shoulder of resorters that come up and ski and stay in the city. So it gets a lot of use too. So that's just something to think about. And that way, if we do happen to get a complaint, we don't have one, I don't think. Jeff didn't pop in there and say, hey, we have one. So you would head off that potential. And I'm not trying to spend your money, don't get me wrong. So, okay, because I know.
I appreciate the suggestion. Yeah, that's a good idea.
That'd be a way to make that proper. Okay. Okay.
Any other comments from any members of the commission? Okay, I would suggest that we approve the, do we need a motion on this?
Yes, you do.
Yeah, I would suggest we approve the site plan as presented.
No, I would suggest for the connection of the two buildings only, because there's two improvements on the site plan.
Because the portico is on it.
Yes.
The portico?
Yeah.
But they're not asking for that. They're just asking for the connection in between 7 and 8.
Right. Yeah,
So
we're
we
just
need-
asking for the ones Victor has circled in yellow there. That's what they're asking for in this site plan,
All right, then I
not
would
the portico.
move to approve the site plan as noted on the site plan that we're looking at right now, with a suggestion as to the parking be considered going forward.
Right.
And I think they got that message and we'll handle it.
Motion by Mr. Deegan.
Second.
Just a vote or a roll call?
Let's do a roll call on that. We'll start with Al Dyke this time.
Yes.
Mark Day,
Yes.
Jack Deegan,
Yes.
Emily DeVay,
Yes.
Vanessa Warren,
Yes.
Rick Tarczynski.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Fine work, gentlemen. Thank you.
Yes.
It's a wonderful story. And you make a good point, that it would really be tough to not have a store in this house.
Right.
Yeah, so
Got
thanks
to have.
for your hard work, and you're open a lot of hours.
Yeah, that's a part of retailers. You gotta have, gotta be open. So,
You are,
yeah,
yeah.
okay. Well, thank you. We want to thank you, all of you also for your service to the community. So it's not always easy to come out on a cold wintry night and do what you do. So we appreciate that you're here and doing that. So thank you.
Max,
So
your mom says you should leave.
Dinner's waiting.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for coming in.
Good job, Max.
Thank you.
That's bad.
How'd you get that message?
Take care.
It's hard.
Good job. Yeah, see you guys later.
Birthday.
Oh, Kate's birthday?
No.
Yeah, whatever.
She said thanks.
Yeah, moving on to section 4D, discussion as to capital improvements plan. Is this you? Vince?
Yeah, that's me. I'll go through it. I'll let you know what we need. So
A lot.
a lot, no.
New stairs.
All right, so this capital improvements plan is part of budgeting season, also it's also part of planning. So it has to go through the planning commission because state law, the Michigan Planning and Enabling Act requires that the planning commission approves the capital improvements plan. And we're specifically looking to ensure that not about how much things cost, but that it conforms with the goals and objectives of the master plan. This year's a little awkward because we're almost on a new master plan. So, which goals do we go with? Right now, we have the master plan that stands. We do have a approved master plan. But anyway, so that's the planning commission's goal, is to look at this and say, all right, these projects conform with what our vision is or what our master plan says the vision is for the community. And then it goes to council for approval and review. The way this is presented is, we have projects listed out for each year and which fund it comes from. And that really helps us know whether it's an electric project or a water or streets project, or if it's a parks project or it's a downtown project, so forth. And then at the end, we have a list of all the projects and the descriptions for more details, how much money they are, what year we anticipate them to be completed in, or hope or are planning for. This year it's for 2022. Most of them are water, electric, and projects. We do have some small other projects. We do have a skate park remodel project that we are hoping to complete next year, which is only be funded through donations. That's listed on there. We do have 2 police capital improvement projects, taser replacement, as well as uniforms. And you'll see contributed funds next to both of those. And that really means is those were funds that were donated to the general fund by a generous donor over the years, and we have them earmarked. So technically that it's coming from the general fund, but it's money that's already been earmarked for the police department. But it's just in our general fund. So we do have, the big thing I want to point out though is this graph right here, this pie chart. In the next 6 years, we have a lot of projects going on, and 2/3 of the overall cost of our projects are coming out of our electric fund. We have probably between $10 and $12 million worth of electric projects that need to happen in the next. It includes a new substation, and deciding where that new substation will go will probably be a discussion that comes here at the planning commission eventually in the future. But that's something we're looking at. So you'll see that the majority of the money coming out of this is from that electric fund. The second biggest fund, the costs are coming from the general fund. You'll see again another chart that shows that right here above there, the bar chart right there. You see about $11 million for the electric fund, about $2 million for the general fund, and then the rest have. So approving this plan though doesn't mean we're going to do all those projects in those years. The council will approve the budget for 2022. And they'll either decide to do some of these projects or push them off depending on what the financial situation is. But all the other projects that are listed in other years, they're necessary projects and desirous projects. So it doesn't mean, that we have to do them in those years, but we're just we're hoping we can accomplish them in this year. We're planning to accomplish them this year. But of course, every year, like 2019 and 2020's capital improvements plan look different. We have to This year, we've pushed around different things, extended many years out. We've taken some off because just of where we're at with the amount of money we have to spend on projects. So you'll notice for 2022, we really don't have any general fund money for anything other than a couple $1,000s for digitization, which we pushed off for a couple years now, which is split between a bunch of funds. And then the police capital projects, which are again through contributed funds. We do have some tree removal. Mostly that's going to be from electric. And we do have some tall pine trees when you enter in town, kind of by the skate park. They're very tall skate pine trees that if they come down in a storm, which they may, they'll take out a lot of our utilities and go over the street. So yeah, or the fence at the skate park. Exactly. So that's why it's probably mostly going to come from the electric fund, but some of it will come from the general fund because if the trees fall down, they'll damage some of things that would require us to take money from the general fund to repair. So, but there really is no big general fund project. Obviously, though, the big one is the boardwalk, right? We have closed the boardwalk due to safety issues and we have to find money for that. If we don't find money, it'll take a few years. So that's why I put the boardwalk down a couple years from now.
When you say find money, have you written grants yet?
We've talked to a lot of grant agencies. Right now, we're talking to one that we're writing a grant for, but there's no guarantee that we get the money. Actually, we called the grant agency and we told them we're from Harbor Springs and they laughed at us. Why do we need the money for Harbor Springs? That's what they literally said that.
Yeah,
Said
I
it all
read
the
the
time.
article in the paper.
Yeah, and just this today, they said it again. So it's hard. It's not easy for us because we're perceived as being wealthy. Anyway, so we are working on grants and hopefully we can get some to go through. But if we get that grant money and do some other fundraising for that, we could potentially get that boardwalk this year. But there's no guarantee. So we're looking also at other design options like stairs or just doing part of the boardwalk again. But yeah,
Your job is tough. It got tougher, didn't
a
it?
little bit.
Yeah.
But we have to do it.
Yep. So Victor, what do you need from us regarding this?
So basically, any feedback, if you guys are, if you look at these projects and feel like they're in line with the master plan's goals, and objectives, and the vision, then an approval of the capital improvements plan, and then it'll go to council for final adoption.
Okay.
But of course, council could have edits their own, changes of their own, but that's what I'm seeking from you guys.
I think everything looks very thorough and well thought out, and I don't have any changes or additions to make.
I would concur. We somewhat rely upon you and your expertise. And I think you've done a nice job, and I do understand it gets more difficult every year.
Yeah.
So I'm in favor of what you're doing and what you're suggesting.
Yeah, I think the scoring looks about right. And then I guess from our point of view, we're concerned with safe streets and a safe town and a pleasant place to live and, reliable electric power is part of that. So I think it's in line with what we would expect.
I concur. Okay.
Motion.
We need just a Yahoo approval.
We don't need a roll call.
I think a motion, but you could do it all in favor.
Yeah, all in favor of the, call it the right thing, capital approval improvement plan as submitted and as commented on by our city manager. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Passed.
Is there a second to that motion?
Jeff made it. Who wants to do the second?
Sorry,
I'll second.
Emily. All right, Emily did the second. All in favor?
I thought Emily kind of got the ball rolling there, but technically.
Rick, it looks like you're still going through it.
I'll second it.
Oh, no, yeah, okay, I just wondered if you were still going through it. That's all.
No.
Did you go? Okay, yeah. All right. Last section, we have member comments. I had one to make. Pete Sears passed away.
Yes.
Good man. I walked into Pearson's Friday night and his son was sitting there and had mentioned it. Pete and I were friends and he'd been on the commission for about 10 years. He's a good guy, good friend, lived right at the top of Judd on the corner. And it was very fun to come home from anything and have a beer or chat with him. I think our minutes should reflect that, how much we love that guy. He's a good dude. He's gonna be remembered on Saturday, I think the Presbyterian Church. So all honor to Pete Sears is what I propose. He was a cool cat.
Yep.
Lived to be 85, Northwestern graduate, sailor, and he's a good guy. So I thought we should remember him.
Good. Well done. Good job. Thank you. That's nice.
Then we now adjourn. The next master plan meeting is scheduled for December 2nd. I already know I won't be here that day. How are we looking on people being able to make that date?
I'll be here.
Okay, Emily?
I'll
you
be
know?
here.
Rich?
Yep.
Yeah, those are kind of interesting because master plan.
Let me take 1 minute, because I know you're probably all hungry and want to get out of here.
You're good.
Master plan. I have a draft completed cover to cover with the background analysis of US population census data did not mirror what they did in 2010. I don't know how many of you actually got a census, but there was like 3 questions in there. Are you alive? Okay, does your heart beat? And do you live here? Basically, it didn't ask many questions. So there's not the same kind of level of data. So we're massaging that. There's 3 sections that are affected by US population. We're in the middle of that right now because more stuff has just recently come out. I should have that section done. So what you have is a cover page, a draft resolution, there's a table of contents. I actually moved the whole background analysis to the appendix. We had talked about that. And there's a section on the community opinion survey, public input. There's the development, land use patterns section, goals and objectives, future land use, implementation strategy, then the appendix. Okay, all the words are drafted. I have gotten comments back from staff and they have my revisions to that. And I also provided Victor and Jeff with a memo letter on all the steps that are necessary to do this and all the timing and suggested. And I'm hoping that by the end of this year, between a meeting on the first Thursday of the month and potentially the 3rd, I don't know what date that is though, or even if we're going to have a meeting, or the very first part of January, that we can button that up. You guys can approve it and we can move it to city council so they can approve it for distribution, because there's a 42-day wait period once we get it out of this house for all the adjacent municipalities, the county and the region to make comment on it. So that puts us for public hearing at about March. Okay.
Larry, is it council that handles the public hearing on it, or do we?
No, planning commission holds the public hearing. The council can do their own public hearing because the planning commission adopts the plan and they send it to the city council for city council adoption. And the city council is not mandated by statute to hold a public hearing, but they have that option. They can hold another one if they desire to.
All right, so we would hold it, and then based on it, that we would send it on to council if we still approve.
Yes, or we it may cause us to make some adjustments to the plan document.
Right.
Is the potential. And so I'm looking at probably around an April hopeful adoption date by the city council. So that's the broad brush timing of it. Is my minute up yet? Probably is.
Then we start over for the next one?
No, you got 5 years to do it again.
Yeah, but
Before you get into another one.
This one?
We're going to date this one 2022. I think the cover right now says 2021. So in 2027, you have to do this again.
So I will try and get out a packet for the December 2nd meeting, which will include this initial draft.
Yes.
And I'll try and get it out as soon as possible before that so that we have plenty of time to review that because it is a large document before that December 2nd meeting.
It's only about 40 pages though.
Only about.
Yeah. And you've read it all at once before anyway.
Sure. We'll get it out
Well,
with a
some of
little
you
bit more
have,
time.
sorry.
answered.
for the meeting.
You'll figure it out pretty quick.
Okay,
Well, good, good. We're on track then.
yes,
Okay,
well, we're moving forward.
we are. All right. How's everybody's got anything else? We are adjourned. Good job. Good meeting.
Bill.
Get better, Bill.